Dear students, welcome back. In the previous session, we have discussed about subtalar joint structure. Now in this section, we are going to discuss about subtalar joint function. So in this subtalar joint function, we are going to discuss about the axis through which the movements of the subtalar joints are going to take place. That is called subtalar axis. And then another concept called as subtalar neutral. Okay, once you understand this axis and how the movements are taking place on this axis, then we are going to discuss about the same function, that means the same movements which are taking place in the subtalar joint in non-weight bearing as well as weight bearing. What are the changes occurring in non-weight bearing and weight bearing in the subtalar joint? And also, due to weight bearing, what happens to the subtalar joint motion? And because of this changes in the subtalar joint motion, which also affects the leg. So what it is going to happen in the leg during weight bearing, and also the another function we are going to discuss in the subtalar joint function is range of motion. So what is the range of motion which includes in the movements of subtalar joint? So if you see all these things, the overall function includes both arthrokinematics as well as osteokinematics together. Okay, whenever you get this intra-articular motions during weight bearing or non-weight bearing, you consider it as arthrokinematics. When we see the range of motion, then it becomes the osteokinematics of the subtalar joint. So, but here we are going to discuss both combinedly. Okay. So you can differentiate this arthrokinematics separately as well as osteokinematics. So the range of motion, what we are going to discuss, that thing we can kept in osteokinematics, and the remaining things we can consider under arthrokinematics. But some rotatory movements which are taking place in the other segments, that thing again it will fall into osteokinematics. So here you have to consider the range of motion is for osteokinematics, and the remaining things you can put in arthrokinematics of subtalar joint. Okay, now first we are going to discuss about the subtalar joint function. So before knowing this axis, again we will see what are the articulations as well as how many degrees of motion is going to take place in the subtalar joint. Okay, so the subtalar joint is composed of 3 articulations, as we already discussed in the previous session. That is the alternating convex concave facets, which limit the potential mobility of the joint. When the talus moves on the posterior facet of the calcaneus, the articular surface of the talus should slide in the same direction of the bone, because concave surface is moving on the convex surface. So what is happening, based upon the rule, it will follows with the same segment. However, the middle and anterior joints, the talar surface the talar surface should glide in the direction opposite to the movement, that is convex surface moving on a stable concave surface. These two things are going to be theoretically correct. What exactly which is going on the talus, we should know. So motion of the talus therefore is a complex twisting or screw-like motion that can continue only until the posterior and anterior and middle facets can no longer accommodate simultaneous and opposite motions. Okay, so this results in triplanar motion. So already we know different planes of motion. These are the cardinal planes which are occurring in the ankle and foot complexes. So in which axis what are the movements are going to take place, we have already discussed, but always keep it in mind this cardinal planes to understand this triplanar motion which is going to take place in the subtalar joint. Okay, so the result is a triplanar motion of the talus around a single oblique joint axis. So here the talus is having a single oblique joint axis. This red one is the joint axis. So now we are going to discuss about this thing. So on this axis, what is the type of motion taking place? Triplanar motion. And because of it is a uniaxial joint, that is 1 degree of freedom of motion is going to take place, that is supination and pronation are going to take place on the subtalar axis. But we have already discussed that the supination and pronation are composite motions. Okay, isn't it? That means 2 or 3 motions combined to form this supination and pronation in the ankle and foot, isn't it? So these composite motions that can be defined by describing what is occurring in each 3 planes. Okay, it should be understood, however, that although each of the composite motions can be broken down into its components, these component motions cannot and do not occur independently. Okay, so although we know this dorsiflexion and plantar flexion is taking place on the coronal axis, and inversion and eversion, that is longitudinal axis, and abduction and adduction along the vertical axis, we know. But in this case of supination, you should understand that these 3 motions are not taking place separately. So all these 3 are going to involve to cause supination and pronation. That is the triplanar motion. Okay, the components occur simultaneously as the talus twists across its 3 articular surfaces, and these cannot be separated. Okay, and these cannot be separated because here during the subtalar movements the talus is going to twist, which causing all these 3 movements combined together to give the movement here. Okay, so if you understand the axis, then you can easily understand this coupled motions. So first we will see what is this subtalar axis. The axis for subtalar supination and pronation has been subjected to many investigations, and many studies have been found there is different average inclinations for the axis. But more importantly, these studies have shown that large differences exist among apparently normal individuals. But in most of the individuals, they have found that the axis, okay, the subtalar axis inclined 42 degrees upward and anteriorly from the transverse plane. So if you can see, this is the lateral view of the foot. Okay, how this axis is passing, if you can see. So this axis is inclining 42 degrees upwards with the transverse plane. Okay, so it is making 42 degrees, so it is moving upwards and anteriorly. If you can see in this picture, superior view, you can see this axis which is moving anteriorly, crossing the subtalar joint anteriorly, and it is going towards the medial side. Okay, so this one, so it is making 42 degrees angle, okay, which is crossing the subtalar joint, and it is moving anteriorly. Okay, so this is the axis found. The axis incline 42 degrees upward and anteriorly from the transverse plane. Normally this angle is going to range of 29 to 47 degrees. Okay, if you see this angulation from the sagittal plane, so this is the superior view. So here we can find this sagittal plane, okay, and with an average of 16 degrees we can found here with that of this axis. So here you can see the 16 degrees. So if you see in the AP axis, or sagittal plane, so this AP axis here, this black dotted lines is the AP axis, which is making 16 degrees of angle with this AP axis when we see in the sagittal plane. Okay, so if you observe clearly these axes and you people just analyze how the movements are taking place. Here the axis is going on the what you can call as it is having an inclination with that of subtalar joint, over this subtalar joint on the lateral aspect, and which is making 42 degrees. And if you see on the sagittal plane how it is happening, so it is having an angulation of 16 degrees with that of AP axis. So here, because of it is crossing almost all the axis, if you observe, so it is crossing the vertical axis and it is crossing AP axis, isn't it? And if you see at this point, it is also crossing the coronal axis. Okay, that means this subtalar axis is crossing all the axes here. So because of this crossing all the axes, so this subtalar joint will have component movements, that is triplanar motion is going to occur here. Okay, so observe here. So this axis is cutting all the axes. So because of cutting all these axes, so we know that, so in the coronal axis it is taking place dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. Vertical axis it is giving abduction and adduction, and longitudinal axis inversion and eversion. So it is cutting all these axes, so which causing this composite movements here. That is, combination of movements are going to takes place. During supination, what are the component movements, and pronation, what are the composite movements are going to take place. For example, if we take supination, so normally the calcaneum is going to move. That is, normally every time this distal segment is going to move on the talus, what is going to happen during supination? So in supination, so the calcaneum is going to inversion. So calcaneal inversion is taking place. So what is the axis for inversion and eversion? That is longitudinal AP axis, isn't it? So if calcaneum is moving this side, what is the axis is going to take place? Longitudinal. Along this longitudinal axis, this inversion is taking place. Next we will see. And also adduction is going to taking place. Adduction, so calcaneal adduction. So adduction In which plane? Vertical plane. So still the axis is cutting all the plane, all these planes, all these axes. So what is going to happen? The adduction is going to happen. So calcaneal inversion is taking place and adduction, calcaneal adduction is going to takes place. And what is the next one? Is the plantar flexion. So plantar flexion, what is the plane? Coronal plane. So it is also cutting this coronal axis, isn't it? Coronal axis. So what is going to happen now? Plantar flexion. Okay. So plantar flexion means down the foot. Okay. Towards the ground. So all these movements, coupled movements called as supination in the foot is going to, under the subtalar joint is going to take place. That means we are going to observe the calcaneum is going to inverted, calcaneal inversion, that is inside, as well as adducted and plantar flexion. So all these combination is taking place through this subtalar axis only. So all these three movements together called as supination, that is 1 degree of motion. So these movements will not occur individually. These movements occur combinedly and on this subtalar axis in the subtalar joint. So the reverse is going to taking place in the pronation, that is calcaneal eversion and abduction and dorsiflexion. So all these are the movements which are taking place in the subtalar joint. So this is the basic things which are going to taking place. Okay, yes. Now this is about the subtalar axis, how the movements are taking place. Okay, now we will see the subtalar neutral. What do you mean by this subtalar neutral? Here, regardless of the inclination of the subtalar axis in any individual, okay, every subtalar joint has a so-called neutral position for which its range can be assessed and from which its relationship to more proximal and distal joints can be evaluated. That position is called as subtalar neutral. Okay, so the so-called subtalar neutral position is generally considered to be the point from which the calcaneus will invert twice. The calcaneum will invert twice as many degrees as it will evert. So that means both inversion and eversion which are going to take place equally, then that point is called as subtalar neutral position. So the point from which the calcaneum will invert twice as many degrees as it will evert. Okay, that means, so if eversion is going to take place 1 degree, then calcaneum is also going to take place 1 degree. That will become equal point. But the subneutral position means here what is going to happen? The calcaneum will invert twice. That means it will invert 2 degrees. It will invert 2 degrees with that of 1 degree of eversion. That point, at which point this subtalar joint is going to show such kind of variation in the inversion, that point is called as subtalar neutral. Okay, the subtalar neutral is encountered when the subtalar joint is fully supinated and then carried 2/3 of the way through the maximum pronation. So that point is called as subneutral point. Okay, some of the studies by Bailey and Perillo and Foreman used radiologic evidence to demonstrate that the neutral position of the subtalar joint was quite varied among individuals. It was not always found 2/3 of the way from maximum supination, although the average neutral subtalar position for their subjects was close to this value. Okay, and also the subtalar neutral position of subtalar joint and the use it as a reference for normal or ideal foot position. Okay, so this is about the subtalar axis and also subtalar neutral. In the next session we are going to discuss about this subtalar joint function in non-weight bearing as well as weight bearing. Thank you.